Particularly when you back a winner, Keith.
That's true, Bruce, especially when you back a winner. Big news in racing too. Mick Dittman has dumped Naturalism and will switch to Viander Cross in the Underwood Stakes at Caulfield next Thursday, and that suggests to me, because this was an insistence of the connections of Viander Cross, that he will retain the ride on Viander Cross throughout the spring. Lee Friedman's reaction this morning: Mick may have made a premature decision and Damien Oliver will replace him, and maybe at the right time. Naturalism's pulled up well, although he was terrible at the Valley yesterday.
He was disappointing. Your highlight yesterday, Max?
Oh, the win of Angst, a very, very smart 3-year-old filly. Angst, a few weeks back, I said, was just out of midweek company. I doubted her quality. I don't doubt her quality now. She's an outstanding horse, and she looks a short price favourite to get the $200,000 bonus for the Princess Series.
Yeah, she's already won 3 of those races. More about her later, going for a 4th. Well, not only was Naturalism disappointing yesterday, another horse failed to fire called Never Undercharge.
Yes, I've always doubted him, as I raised this point with you, Bruce, that I didn't really consider him a Cox Plate candidate. And he was distressed when he pulled up yesterday and was swapped. I hope there's nothing wrong with him, but gee, that was a flop, and he started odds on.
Well, let's have a look at the race. Never Undercharge and Naturalism both struggling back in the field. Never Undercharge moved up 4th here. Palace Rain about to move upside the 2 leaders. Pearl Prince, the big surprise in the race, leading.
Well, he was an afterthought runner, because he only got into the field when acceptances were extended. He was a maiden until a week ago, and there he is, leading our supposed weight for age stars.
Here's where Never Undercharge is in trouble when they accelerate, and you can see Dittman hard at Naturalism, second last on the fence.
Yeah, Palace Rain had beaten both Never Undercharge and Naturalism in the Memsie Stakes. This was a rerun. He did it again, and the others were unplaced, and he is the most underrated runner. He's now moving up to virtually joint favouritism for the Caulfield Cup. He can run the distance. He was not all that far behind the place getters in the Derby last season. That's Palace Rain going to the post strongly.
Well, from a Caulfield Guineas point of view, you've got to say Pearl Prince, an excellent run. Kiwi golfer did his chances no harm. Max, you were watching from a fair way away. Naturalism, you've seen a lot of him. You've been his greatest supporter, I think. Never Undercharge as well.
Yes, I thought Naturalism was disappointing yesterday. I'm not going to wipe him. You don't wipe an old mate just after one bad run, but certainly his performance is questionable. You've got to wonder whether he'll come back after Japan. I would say that performance of Never Undercharge too, that wasn't his true form. I'd ask you in Melbourne, but just how much did the rain last week interfere with their preparations? Were they at their peak? I doubt it, but nevertheless, they've got to improve a lot to beat Palace Rain.
Well, Max, Never Undercharge had a special Thursday afternoon gallop at Flood Hit Flemington. I don't think there was any excuse on that count. The track was cut up a little, but he pulled up distress. Simon Marshall said after the race that something was amiss, and incidentally, Lee Friedman said that Naturalism will probably revert to blinkers for his next start.
Well, big query over both of them, and Palace Rain, as you said, gaining favour. He's so well weighted in the Caulfield Cup, remembering he was one of the horses that fell in the Cox Plate last year as a 3-year-old.
And travelling well at the time.
Could be underrated for sure. What about Sequalo, who we see now winning the Colin Hayes Stakes? Aptly named because David Hayes had 6 winners yesterday, 4 of them at Moonee Valley, and he's had a dozen during the week. Sequalo about to sweep here, but he had a real battle, didn't he, to get past?
Well, he's virtually 5 wide in the all-blue colours, and Norman Weymouth, who rode Sequalo and made it 5 out of 5 on his dad's horse, or his father's trained horse, has said Sequalo went to sleep. Well, he woke up just at the right time because he grabbed the win in the very last stride.
And Boy and Alack were not using the whip, hands and heels, and I think it shocked a lot of people, Sequalo getting up. We've seen Brawny, Spirit and Sequalo in the last few weeks take racing by storm in Melbourne by continuing their winning ways, both by the same sire, Rustic Amber. How do they compare, do you think?
Brawny Spirit's the smallest horse racing in Australia. He's a little idle down our neck of the woods, and Sequalo's doing everything right. His big test comes in the Caulfield Guineas. No, it in fact will come next Sunday, 1 week from today, in the Bill Stud Stakes over 1,600 metres at Moonee Valley. That's when he'll meet some tougher opponents.
Yes, jumping up in distance. Just briefly before we go on to Sydney, the run of Cap Chat yesterday to win the Lauren Perrier, and Corbett Chan's win over Mac Robert in the Stayers race.
Firstly, Cap Chat, she established herself as probably the nominal favourite for the 1,000 guineas, and maybe an Oaks chance too. That's the path that trainer John Maher's going to set for her. Lady Jackie at the same time was disappointing. She'll have a break and be freshened up. She won't race for a month. And Korchaban, well, he's honest. He's a good front runner. He did it the hard way yesterday and fought on and won. He's going places also.
Gee, Max, I reckon you've got the 1,000 Guineas favourite, that grey filly, but we'll talk about her in a moment. What about the Hill Stakes yesterday? Durbridge can't quite find the line. He was leading. Silk Ali was about 5th on the fence when we picked them up. Kingston Bay in front of him.
Yes, Silk Ali's in the pink colours, giving them a start. Kingston Bay was a trifle disappointing, but this is Silk Ali. This is the horse that Naturalism gave 12 kilos to in a beating, charging down the outside now. So what's happened to Naturalism? Silk Ali was a good horse then. Silk Ali's a good horse now. He'll be competitive in all the races in Melbourne. Whether he's got that quality just to get away with the Caulfield Cup, questionable. But there's no question about the fact that he'll make them go.
If you're talking weights, Max, he carried 59 kilos yesterday and dropped 6 kilos into the Caulfield Cup. That must put him in some contention.
Oh, no doubt about it. He's a good racehorse, Keith. But as you pointed out before, horses like Palace Rain drop in weight too. And I do think that Palace Rain is a bit smarter than the horses that Silk Ali raced yesterday.
Yes, weight for age form in the spring in Sydney can be a bit misleading, I think. It's not nearly as strong as the Melbourne weight for age form. The Shannon Quality, this horse has improved. He's gone from a very good handicapper, Soho Square. He's running about 3rd or 4th, Max, to almost a little superimpose. I know he's not quite in that class yet, but he's become an outstanding galloper.
No, he is outstanding. He's got that ability to take up a position. Had Ghost Story had the same run as he did yesterday, Ghost Story perhaps would have won, certainly would have made it interesting. Ghost Story, that's the grey horse on the outside, was wide all the way, began tardily, and you just can't give a horse like Soho Square a start. Now, the query aspect of Soho Square now is whether he'll run in the Epsom. The weights will be declared tomorrow. I think if he got round about 57.5 in the Epsom, he would be very, very competitive. He's going onto the Cox Plate. Soho Square's the type of horse, though, he'll make him go over any journey in any race because he's just a good racehorse.
Speaking of good racehorse, Anks made it 4 in a row. She was 40-1 when she beat Bint Masqué the first time, a 13-2 the second time. We kept saying that this grey filly was beating an out-of-form Bint Masqué, but her performance yesterday suggests she is outstanding herself.
No doubt about that. The acceleration is what I like, the way she got to the line. On the dam side, she's bred for speed, but she's got a little bit more than that. She's got a touch of freak about her, this filly. She's getting better all the time. But, Bruce, I doubt whether you'll see her in Melbourne. She's not a good traveller. And I know that Noel Mayfield-Smith at this stage prefers to run her in the big race at Randwick and then perhaps turn her out. But she's going so well. Perhaps they might change their mind, but she's had a few mishaps in travelling and they're very cautious of this area at this stage.
Max, as the opposition has got tougher, her margin has become wider and she looks ready to pick up that $200,000 Princess bonus, doesn't she?
I don't know whether the opposition's got any tougher, Keith, but they're the same horses. And that basically is what's going to happen in the next engagement. They're going to be the same horses, the sashed. Points have fallen in her favour, the pace of the races, muddling pace. She's been able to adapt to this, but she's just kept on getting better. And I can't see why she won't keep on improving too. Just as I said before, that touch of freak about this horse.
There was a thought that a couple of the top Melbourne fillies would go for the Flight Stakes. It's Group 1, the Edward Manifold's Group 2 on the same day. So that might freshen it up for you, Max, because I know you need that every now and then. Newcastle Cup. Well, I don't care if it was a cow in the paddock that his arm beat. This was an unbelievable run. What weight did this bloke have? We're talking about the grey horse, second from the right, Max.
57.5, under extreme pressure now. On the outside is Paris Fire, who'd had a tough run. At this stage, it looked like Mick Dittman and Azam might be struggling to win, but whoosh go. A check there, a check. According to Dittman, that just got his mind on the job. Now, this is the big part of Azam's race, the finish. 57.5.
You've already said that, Max.
I'm just going to repeat that. That is a very major point because you've got to go back a long time in Newcastle Cup history to see a horse that has carried that weight and won. So Azam, well, he's a 7-year-old stallion. It's they're not a group that's got a big record in the Cups, but there's just something a little bit outstanding about that horse too and that performance.
Well, speaking of the Cups, this morning the Irish St Ledger was run. 2 horses are expected to come to Melbourne for the Melbourne Cup, Drum Taps and Vintage Crop. Here's the concluding stages.
The last furlong and a half, and Vintage Crop is the leader, being chased by 4C in second. Snurgeon 3, Assessor trying to come into it on the outside. Vintage Crop chased by 4C as they race inside the last 200 yards. Vintage Crop the leader from 4C. Assessor is finishing well on the outside. Sonus has come from a long way back, but the gamble's going to be landed as they race up the line. Vintage Crop punched out by Michael Canaan, wins the Ledger.
Well, Vintage Crop has now had 3 wins at 2,800 metres. He's won at 3,200 metres, 3,600 metres, and after that race, his owner, Michael Smirnoff, said, next stop, Melbourne. So this might be the first horse in the 133-year history, the first Northern Hemisphere trained horse to win the Melbourne Cup.
Well, he's not in the market. Max is having a laugh back there. He's not in the market at the moment, Max. You don't think he can win, Max?
No, well, look, Keith can be on Vintage Crop and that jockey flotting flies. I'd just like to see a Zam with Mick Dittman just chasing him up.
Well, Max, let's look at the cup market just before we go. Al Pompey, Runyon, Star of the Realm at 8 to 1. I'm going to pass those thoughts on to that jockey, by the way. Great Vintage Innocent King, Viandacross. You are coming down to Melbourne shortly, I know, Max. I'll see you then. Keith, I'll catch you in about a fortnight.